Good evening. This is the 6:30 report and this is Tengku Malinda with the news. First, the headlines. A Belgian hostage is released from 30 months of captivity in Lebanon. In China, 3 pro-democracy protesters are sentenced to death. Indonesia's Minister of Foreign Affairs returns home from Geneva and a 2-day conference on Indo-Chinese refugees. And at the pre-Wimbledon tennis tournament, top seeds Mats Wilander and Ivan Lendl gets off to a good start. And now the news in detail. Belgian hostage Jan Koels was released yesterday in the southern Lebanese city of Sidon after almost 13 months in captivity. 32-year-old Koels, who worked for the Norwegian humanitarian organization Norwec before he was kidnapped in May 1988, was released and turned over to the Nazarite Sa'ad militia, a Sunni group which has controlled Sidon since Lebanese civil war broke out in 1975. Political observers expect that Koels was taken hostage by a dissident PLO group led by Abu Nidal, but Nidal's faction has denied the accusation. His release was reportedly negotiated through Nidal's group and came after an appeal from Libyan leader Colonel Muammar Gaddafi. Koels' release leaves 17 other Westerners missing in Lebanon and believed held hostage. They include 9 Americans, 4 Britons, 2 West Germans, an Irishman and an Italian. Koels said he was never treated aggressively in captivity. Chinese authorities yesterday made their first public announcements of death penalties for pro-democracy protesters since the military crackdown on the student-led democracy movement began 12 days ago. A Shanghai court sentenced 3 men to death for sabotage for setting fire to a train that ran over other protesters. The 3 men were identified as Zhu Guoming, Zhuang Hanwu and Yan Zuirong. They were given 3 days to appeal, but the judge said their crime is very serious. We will punish them heavily and as soon as possible. Hundreds of workers, unemployed youths and some students have been arrested across China in recent days in a wave of what the people of Peking call white terror. The Minister of Foreign Affairs, Ali Alatas, returned from an international conference on Indo-Chinese refugees in Geneva at Sukarno-Hatta Airport earlier today, pointed out that with hundreds still leaving Vietnam every day, many are not political refugees, but are in search of a better life.
The conference was successful in achieving a new common understanding among its participants on how to resolve in a comprehensive way the question of asylum seekers from Indochina, and this is expressed inter alia in the adoption by the conference by consensus of a declaration and a comprehensive program of action, which for the first time now envisages a status determination process for new asylum seekers, but also greater efforts, more effective measures to ensure that the 3 components of the problem, namely departure from the countries of origin, reception by the countries of first asylum and resettlement countries, and as the third component, the determination of their status and so on, will be dealt with in a much more comprehensive way.
Turkish Prime Minister Turgut Özal said yesterday that Ankara wanted talks with Bulgaria on the plight of minority ethnic Turks as thousands of them streamed across the border into Turkey. Özal said he had asked the Bulgarian leaders to meet with him and with the UN High Commissioner for Refugees, UNHCR, which has agreed to donate some funds to help the refugees. At least 22,000 of the 1.5 million ethnic Turks in Bulgaria were deported, following protests against their forced assimilation into Bulgarian society.
Rightfully inherited from their forefathers.
Soviet President Mikhail Gorbachev yesterday dismissed the importance of the Berlin Wall as a symbol of East-West relation at the end of a visit to West Germany. He said the trip had opened a new path toward improved ties among European nations. West German President Richard von Weizsäcker called Gorbachev's visit a real human and political advance and said that it had formed a bond between the people of the Soviet Union and West Germany. Gorbachev told journalists at his closing press conference that the Berlin Wall was no great problem, saying that nothing is eternal. Gorbachev suggested that changed conditions in Europe could make borders obsolete. In a 25-minute opening statement, Gorbachev welcomed the new North Atlantic Treaty Organization position on short-range missiles, reached in Brussels last month. However, he said that the Soviets did not see it as a major breakthrough, since it contained elements of the old philosophy, such as reliance on nuclear deterrence. He described the West German trip as a unique experience. French President François Mitterrand yesterday announced a package of economic aid for Poland as a gesture of support for its program of political reform. At talks with Polish Prime Minister Rakowski, Mitterrand outlined the aid proposal, which he first announced at a state banquet hosted by Polish leader General Jaruzelski on Wednesday night. The French plan offers a rescheduling of Poland's foreign debt, immediate and unrestricted loans worth $20 million, and an additional $14 million for specific projects later. Mitterrand also pledged that France would speak up for Poland among Western European countries in discussions about further debt relief. Later, Mitterrand flew from Warsaw to the northern port of Gdansk, where he had lunch with Solidarity leader Lech Wałęsa. Karis Suhud, Speaker of the Indonesian Parliament, met with his Malaysian counterpart, Tan Sri Datuk Muhammad bin Haji Ismail, yesterday in Jakarta. Both speakers of the parliament talked about IPO, the ASEAN Inter-Parliamentary Organization, which members will hold their annual meeting in Jakarta from the 21st to 26th of August. At the meeting, the 5 members of IPO, Indonesia, Malaysia, Thailand, the Philippines and Singapore, will discuss the appointment of IPO's Secretary General as yet unresolved, as well as the question of the organization's budget and status. After meeting with Karis Suhud, Tan Sri Datuk Muhammad bin Haji Ismail will visit Ujung Pandang, the land of his ancestors. Vice Speaker of Parliament R. Sukardi held a dinner reception last night in Jakarta for the visiting parliamentary delegation from Papua New Guinea, which is headed by Mr. Perry Zepi. Speaking at the dinner, Mr. Sukardi said he was sure that the visit of the Papua New Guinea delegation would help increase bilateral relations and cooperation between both countries. On February the 4th, 1987, a memorandum of understanding was signed by the parliaments of both countries. Earlier today, the delegation held a discussion with Susatyo Mardi, head of the Parliamentary Cooperating Board. Mr. Perry Zaidi said that the members of the delegation were very interested in the progress achieved by Indonesian development, especially in the economic field. Later, the delegation, accompanied by Papua New Guinea ambassador to Indonesia, Sebulon Kulo, met with the Minister of Home Affairs, Rudini. The delegation is also scheduled to meet with President Suharto and visit some recreational areas such as Taman Mini, Ancol Dreamland, and the Yogyakarta Kraton or Sultan's Palace during their visit to Indonesia. Lintasarta Service, a company engaged in the field of telecommunication in cooperation with Perumtel, the state-owned telecommunications company, Indosat, as well as government-owned and private banks, is currently providing telecommunication services to the national banking community. The Minister of Tourism, Post and Telecommunication, Susilo Sudarman, who officiated at the start of the company's operations yesterday in Jakarta, said that he expected the service to help improve the quality of information and establish a standard for banking export reports. Minister Sudarman commented that telecommunication development in Indonesia has been able to provide main telecommunication facilities such as telephone, telex and faximile. A memorandum of understanding dealing with cooperation in forestry projects between the Republic of Korea and Indonesia was signed earlier today during the 9th Indonesia-Korea Forestry Committee meeting in Jakarta. The agreement was signed by the Indonesian Minister of Forestry, Harusrul Harahap, and the Korean Minister of Agriculture, Forestry and Fisheries, Kim Sik. According to Minister Harahap, the joint agreement will help forestry development in Indonesia, which covers human resources development, rehabilitation of critical land, research and development, income generation and timber estate development. The Korean minister later commented on the increased cooperation in this field between his country and Indonesia, which he said has been beneficial to both countries. He said he hoped that trade in forestry products could be further increased. 5 of the 12 European Community countries, EC, voted yesterday for the European Parliament after campaigns in which EC issues took a backseat to national ones. Yesterday's polls in Britain, Spain, Ireland, Denmark and the Netherlands will be followed on Sunday by voting the other member countries.
The warm weather, early indications are that most British voters will give the Euro elections a miss. Last time, Britain had the lowest turnout of any country in the European community, with less than a third of those on the electoral register bothering to vote. Getting out the vote for the 78 seats is the biggest problem for party leaders. In Northern Ireland, where there's proportional representation for 3 seats, voting's been brisker. In 1984, the turnout was double the figure in Britain. And there's a general election today in Ireland, where the Taoiseach, Charles Hockey, is trying once again to win a clear majority of seats. A strong campaign by opposition leader Alan Dukes and voter apathy at a snap election called apparently for no reason make the result hard to call. Other Euro elections today are in Spain, Denmark and the Netherlands. The rest of the European community will vote for their MPs for the Strasbourg Parliament on Sunday.
An explosion ripped through a Pakistani-owned supertanker in Dubai yesterday. At least 1 man was killed and 14 others injured, according to police. It was not immediately clear whether the casualties were dock workers or crew in the blast which hit the pump room of the 231,493-ton Bahamas-registered Sabre. The tanker is operated by the Hong Kong-based Atlas Shipping Management Company. The tanker was in dock for repairs when the explosion occurred. The cause of the blast was not known, but a dry dock worker contacted by telephone said a welding machine could have caused it. Casualties were transferred to Dubai hospitals and the area has been cordoned off by police. Indonesian cyclist Ronnie Yahya rode to victory in the 9th and last stage of the Tour de Java 1989, which ended in Solo, Central Java yesterday afternoon. Ronnie clocked in at 4 hours, 28 minutes and 8 seconds, covering a distance of 177 kilometers, thus putting him on the top of the overall standings of this week-long cycling race. Ronnie from the Indonesian A team pulled away from a group of 5 riders only about 300 meters before the finish line in the city's main street, Jalan Slamet Riyadi. He crossed the finish line 12 seconds ahead of his closest rival, PM Coates of New Zealand. Coates, who had been in hot pursuit against Ronnie since entering the city, failed in his last attempt to overtake the champion and had to take second place. Mulya Warman, also from Indonesia, came in third. Former world number 1 Mats Wilander boosted his flagging confidence with a comfortable 6-1, 6-4 victory over American Paul Chamberlain in the 3rd round of the Stella Artois pre-Wimbledon tournament at Queen's Club, London yesterday. Here are some highlights of the match.
Game first set, Wilander, 6 games to 1.
Oh, that's a beauty. That's a lovely stroke. Oh, lovely wrong footer.
Yes. Game, set, match, Wilander. 2 sets to love, 6-1, 6-4.
Top seed Ivan Lendl looked impressive as he swept aside the West German Eric Yellen 6-1, 6-3 to also reach the last 8.
Game in first set, Lendl.
And that's the end of the news. Coming up next, Intan Nugroho takes a look on horseback riding and racing in Indonesia. And from me, it's good night.